Midnight delivery surprise. Jake drummed his fingers on the desk, eyes tired from staring at spreadsheets all evening, his stomach growling in protest. It was nearly 1 in the morning when he finally gave up and grabbed his phone to order something quick. Anything to silence the hunger. He scrolled through the delivery app and settled on noodles from that place down the street. 20 minutes later, the doorbell buzzed. Jake shuffled to the door in his sweatpants and old college shirt, expecting the usual delivery guy with a paper bag. What he got instead made him freeze completely. Standing in his doorway was a girl unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin was a soft purple shade that seemed to shimmer slightly in the hallway light, like twilight itself had taken human form. "Please," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that made his heart race. "I need your help. I am lost." She wore what looked like a torn metallic suit that barely covered her body, clinging to curves that made Jake's mouth go dry. Her hair was long and dark with subtle purple undertones, falling past her shoulders in waves. Her eyes were large and expressive, a deeper shade of violet that held both fear and hope. "What? Who are you?" Jake stammered, glancing down the empty hallway. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No joke," she whispered urgently. "My name is Mira. I crashed here. My ship malfunctioned and I need shelter. Please, before someone else sees me." Jake's mind raced with possibilities. This had to be a prank. Maybe one of his friends hired an actress. But something about her presence felt genuine. The way she trembled slightly, the authentic fear in her eyes, the fact that her skin actually was purple and not painted. Okay. "Get inside," he said quickly, pulling her into his apartment before any neighbors could spot them. Mira entered gracefully. Despite her apparent exhaustion, her movements fluid and almost hypnotic. Jake closed the door and turned to face her properly under the better lighting of his living room. She was real. Completely and impossibly real. "Thank you," Mira said, relief washing over her features. "I did not know where else to go. I saw your dwelling had lights on." "Your skin," Jake said, unable to stop himself from staring, "it is actually purple?" "Yes," she replied simply. "I am from a planet called Vexora. We are explorers, and I was on a research mission when my vessel had a critical failure. I managed to crash in the forest area outside your city." Jake motioned her to sit on the couch, his shock slowly giving way to curiosity and something else, an attraction he could not explain. She moved with such grace, her body language both alien and somehow familiar. "Are you hurt?" he asked, sitting across from her. "Not physically," Mira said, her eyes meeting his with intensity. "But I am weak. My kind requires something specific to survive. We draw energy from emotional and physical connections with compatible beings." "Connections," Jake repeated, his pulse quickening at the implication. Mira leaned forward slightly, her presence magnetic. "Intimate connections, the exchange of emotions, of touch, it sustains us, much like food sustains you." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. Jake felt drawn to her in a way that defied logic. Maybe it was the impossibility of the situation, or maybe it was simply her. "It makes me much to ask," Mira continued, her voice softer now. "But without help, I will not survive until my people can locate me. And I sense you are lonely too." She was right. Jake had been alone for months since his last relationship ended, working late hours, avoiding social situations, living in quiet isolation. "How does it work?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mira's lips curved into a small smile. "May I show you?" She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted, but Jake found himself leaning in instead. Her purple fingers touched his hand and immediately a warmth spread through him. Not burning, but pleasant, like sunshine on skin. Tingles ran up his arm and his breath caught. "You feel it?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. "Yes," Jake breathed, his logical mind screaming that this was insane, while every other part of him wanted more. Mira moved closer on the couch, her other hand coming to rest on his chest. "The connection grows stronger with trust, with desire. I can feel your heart racing." "This is crazy," Jake said, but he did not move away.
Sometimes the most beautiful things are, Mira replied, her face now inches from his. I promise, I mean you no harm, only closeness. Jake's resolution crumbled as he looked into those violet eyes, seeing vulnerability and need mirrored with his own hidden desires. He closed the distance between them, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that sent electricity through his entire body. Mira responded eagerly, her arms wrapping around his neck as she deepened the kiss. Her lips tasted like something sweet and foreign, her body warm against his. Jake's hands found her waist, feeling the smooth purple skin where her torn suit exposed it. She gasped softly at his touch, the sound shooting straight through him. They broke apart, both breathing heavily. Your energy, Mira whispered. It is strong, intoxicating. Stay here tonight, Jake said, surprised by his own boldness. Stay as long as you need. Mira's smile was radiant. Thank you, Jake. I promise to make it worth your kindness.
Learning each other. Morning light filtered to the curtains, casting soft shadows across Jake's bedroom, where Mira lay curled against him. Her purple skin seemed to glow faintly in the dawn, like she absorbed the light itself. Jake watched her sleep for a moment, still trying to process that last night had actually happened. She stirred, those violet eyes opening slowly. Good morning, she said with a sleepy smile. Morning, Jake replied, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. How are you feeling? Much better. Mira stretched like a cat, the sheet slipping to reveal more of her purple skin. Your energy helped restore me significantly. I can feel my strength returning. They had spent most of the night talking and kissing, exploring each other with curious hands. Jake learning the subtle differences in her body, the way her skin felt like silk, how she responded to his touch with soft sounds that drove him wild. They had not gone all the way, but the intimacy had been intense enough to leave them both satisfied and exhausted. I should make breakfast, Jake said reluctantly, pulling away. Can you eat human food? I can, though I do not require much. The emotional energy sustains me more than physical nourishment. In the kitchen, Jake scrambled eggs while Mira explored his apartment with childlike curiosity. She touched everything: books, plants, his old guitar in the corner, each item fascinating to her. Your world is so different from mine, she said, picking up a framed photo of Jake with his family. These are your tribe? My family, yeah, Jake said, smiling at her terminology. That is my mom, my dad, and my sister Emma. You care for them deeply, Mira observed. I can sense the emotion attached to this image. They ate together at the small kitchen table, Mira trying the eggs tentatively before nodding in approval. Jake could not stop looking at her. The way the morning light played across her features, the graceful way she moved. Tell me about Vexora, he asked. Mira's eyes lit up. It is a world of purple skies and silver oceans. We live in structures that float among the clouds. Our cities are connected by light bridges that shimmer like your rainbows. Our people are explorers and artists. We travel the stars seeking beauty and connection. It sounds incredible, Jake said, imagining it. It is, she agreed, but also lonely. Our connections are often brief. We move from world to world, never staying long enough to form deep bonds. I have longed for something more meaningful. Her hand found his across the table, fingers intertwining. Last night, what we shared, it was more than just energy exchange. I felt something real between us. Jake squeezed her hand. I felt it too. I know this is all impossible and crazy, but I do not want you to leave yet. I cannot leave even if I wished to, Mira said with a rueful smile. My ship is damaged beyond my ability to repair quickly. I sent a distress signal, but my people could take weeks to locate me. Then stay here, Jake said firmly.
We'll figure it out together." Mira stood and moved around the table to him, settling herself onto his lap, her arms draping around his neck. "You are very kind, Jake. I am fortunate to have found you." She kissed him deeply, her body pressing against him. Jake's hands slid up her sides, feeling her warmth through the thin shirt she had borrowed from him. Mira made a soft sound of pleasure, grinding slightly against him. "I need more," she whispered against his lips. Jake lifted her easily, carrying her back to the bedroom, where they fell onto the bed together. Clothes were shed quickly, reverent hands exploring newly exposed skin. Mira's purple body was beautiful in the full daylight, her curves perfect, her skin unmarked and smooth. "You are stunning," Jake breathed, kissing down her neck. Mira arched beneath him. "Touch me, please. I need to feel you." His hands roamed her body, learning every dip and curve. She guided him with whispered encouragements, showing him where she was most sensitive. Her breathing quickened as his fingers explored lower, finding her warmth. "Yes," she gasped, "just like that." They moved together in a rhythm that felt ancient and new at once. Mira's legs wrapping around him as they connected fully. The sensation was overwhelming, not just physical, but emotional, like their very souls were intertwining. She cried out his name, her nails digging into his shoulders. Jake lost himself in her, in the purple galaxy of her eyes, in the way her body moved with his. They climaxed together, the pleasure crashing over them in waves that left them both trembling. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, hearts racing, skins slick with sweat. Jake started, but couldn't find words. "Transcendent," Mira finished, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "I have never felt anything so powerful. Your energy, it's like nothing I have encountered." "I have never felt like this either. This is more than just physical." Mira propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him seriously. "Jake, I must warn you. The more we connect like this, the deeper our bond will grow. For my kind, such bonds can become permanent." "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means my energy will attune specifically to yours. I will crave you above all others, and you may find yourself drawn to me in ways you cannot explain. It is rare, but it happens. We call it soul bonding." He considered this. The logical part of his brain suggested he should be cautious, but his heart already knew the answer. "I am willing to take that risk." Mira smiled, relief and joy mix in her expression. "Then let us see where this cosmic connection leads us." They spent the rest of the day in bed, talking and touching, learning each other in ways that went beyond physical. Mira told him stories of distant worlds, while Jake shared his dreams and fears. With every confession, every kiss, and every intimate touch, their bond grew stronger. As evening approached, Jake realized his entire life had shifted in less than 24 hours, and he did not want to go back.
Hidden connections. The following morning, Jake woke to find Mira standing at his window, gazing at the city below with a thoughtful expression. She had wrapped herself in his bedsheet like a purple goddess draped in white. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, stretching. "My ship," Mira replied without turning. "I need to retrieve the communication core. It is the only way to boost my distress signal and let my people know exactly where I am." Jake sat up. "Where did you crash, exactly?" "In the forest preserve, about 3 miles from here," she said. "The ship is cloaked, but I need to access it soon. Some systems may be failing." "We can go tonight when it is dark," Jake suggested. "Less chance of being seen." Mira turned to him with a grateful smile. "You would help me with this?" "Of course," Jake said, reaching for his phone to check the time. He had several missed calls from his friend Ryan and a text from his neighbor Mrs. Chen asking if everything was all right. Apparently, she had heard voices last night. "Problem?" Mira asked, reading his concerned expression. "My neighbor is nosy," Jake explained. "Mrs. Chen lives across the hall. She probably heard us. We need to be more careful." As if summoned by the mention of her name, a knock sounded at the door. "Jake, dear, are you home?" Mrs. Chen's voice called out. Mira's eyes widened in panic. Jake quickly gestured for her to hide in the bedroom. "Just a minute, Mrs. Chen." He threw on sweatpants and a shirt, running his fingers through his hair before opening the door just enough to peek out. Mrs. Chen stood there with a covered dish, her curious eyes trying to peer past him. "Good morning," Jake said with forced casualness. "I brought you some dumplings," she said, pushing the dish toward him. "I heard quite a bit of noise last night. Wanted to make sure you were feeling well." "Oh, yeah, just had a friend over," Jake replied, taking the dish. "Thank you for these." "A friend," Mrs. Chen repeated, with a knowing look. "I heard a woman's voice, very late into the night and this morning." Jake felt his face heat up. "Yeah, just someone I have been seeing." "Well," Mrs. Chen said, clearly fishing for more information, "I hope she is a nice girl. You deserve someone good after that terrible breakup last year." "She is very nice," Jake said honestly. "Look, I appreciate the dumplings, but I really need to—" Of course, Mrs. Chen waved her hand. "You young people and your privacy. Just wanted to make sure everything was appropriate." Jake managed to close the door before she could probe further. He leaned against it with a sigh of relief. Mira emerged from the bedroom, now wearing his shirt and sweatpants rolled up at the ankles. "That was close," she said. "We need a better cover story," Jake muttered, "and probably some clothes that actually fit you." They spent the afternoon planning. Jake called in sick to work, claiming a stomach bug. Then they ventured out briefly to a nearby thrift store where Mira picked out clothes. She chose mostly purple and dark colors, things that would not draw too much attention but suited her natural coloring. Back at the apartment, Mira tried on her new outfits. Jake sat on the bed, watching her model each piece. The simple act of watching her change somehow felt incredibly intimate. "How do I look?" she asked, wearing jeans and a purple tank top. "Beautiful," Jake said, pulling her close. "You would look beautiful in anything." Mira straddled his lap, her arms wrapping around his neck. "You make me feel beautiful, desired. I have never experienced this before." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, his hands settling on her hips. "On Vexora, connections are transactional. We exchange energy but rarely emotion. What you and I have, this tenderness, it is new to me." Jake kissed her softly. "Then I'm glad I get to show you." The kiss deepened, Mira's body pressing against his with growing urgency. Her hands slipped under his shirt, exploring the planes of his chest. Jake groaned as she ground against him. "I need you again," she whispered, her voice husky with desire. They fell back onto the bed together, hands frantically removing the clothes they had just put on. Mira's purple skin glowed faintly as her arousal grew, a phenomenon Jake found endlessly fascinating. "You glow when you're turned on," he observed, trailing kisses down her neck. "Your energy excites me," she gasped as his mouth found her breast. "It makes my body respond." Jake took his time exploring her, learning what made her gasp and moan. His fingers found her heat and she arched into his touch, whimpering his name. When he replaced his fingers with his mouth, she cried out in pleasure, her hands fisting in his hair. "Jake! Jake!" she panted, her thighs trembling. He brought her to the edge and over, her body shuddering with release. Before she could recover, he positioned himself and slid inside her, both of them moaning at the connection. They moved together urgently, the bed creaking beneath them. Mira wrapped her legs around him, pulling him deeper, her nails raking down his back in a way that would definitely leave marks. "Howder," she demanded, her voice desperate. Jake complied, driving into her with more force, the headboard thumping against the wall. Mira met him thrust for thrust, their bodies slick with sweat, the glow of her skin intensifying.
When they climaxed, it was simultaneous and explosive. Mira screaming his name while Jake buried his face in her neck, muffling his own shout. They collapsed together, breathing hard, hearts pounding in sync. "I think Mrs. Chen definitely heard that," Jake said after a moment, making Mira laugh. As night fell, they prepared for their mission to the crash site. Mira wore dark clothes and Jake packed a flashlight and some tools. They slipped out of the apartment quietly, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. The forest preserve was quiet and dark. Mira led the way with confidence, navigating through the trees like she could see in the dark. After about 20 minutes of hiking, they reached a small clearing. "There," Mira said, pointing to what looked like empty air. She pressed her hand forward, and suddenly the outline of a ship appeared. It was small and sleek, maybe the size of a van, with a metallic surface that shimmered. "Amazing," Jake breathed. Mira opened a panel and began working on extracting the communication core. Jake held the flashlight while she worked, explaining what each component did. As she removed the core, a holographic display flickered to life. "Mira," a computerized voice spoke, "systems are at 30%, energy reserves critical." "I know, Nova," Mira replied. "I'm working on it." "Who is Nova?" Jake asked. "My ship's artificial intelligence." "Nova, this is Jake. He's been helping me." "Greetings, Jake," Nova said. "Thank you for assisting Mira. Her survival is important."
Growing complications. Jake and Mira returned to the apartment with the communication core, both relieved to have retrieved it successfully. Mira immediately began setting it up on Jake's desk, the device humming softly as it powered on. "How long until your people respond?" Jake asked, watching her work. "Could be days, could be weeks," Mira said, her fingers dancing over the holographic interface. "Space is vast and my people move constantly." A sharp knock interrupted them. Jake's heart sank when he heard Ryan's voice. "Dude, I know you are in there, open up." Jake glanced at Mira, who quickly shut down the device. He opened the door to find his best friend standing there with arms crossed. "You have been avoiding my calls for 2 days, Ryan said, pushing past him into the apartment. He stopped dead when he saw Mira standing there in purple glory. "Holy." "Ryan, this is Mira," Jake said quickly. "Mira, my best friend, Ryan." Ryan stared, his mouth opening and closing. "Your skin is purple." "Very observant," Mira said with a slight smile. "She is not from around here," Jake explained lamely. "Not from around here," Ryan repeated. "Jake, her skin is literally purple. What is going on?" Jake sighed, closing the door. "You might want to sit down." They spent the next hour explaining everything while Ryan's expression cycled through disbelief, shock, and finally reluctant acceptance. He examined the communication core with fascination. "So you are an actual alien," Ryan said to Mira. "And you two are together," Jake finished firmly. Ryan looked between them. "This is insane, you know that, right? This is completely insane." "I know," Jake admitted, "but it is also real, and I care about her." "Your friend is loyal," Mira observed. "That is admirable." Ryan rubbed his face. Okay, I'm processing. Does anyone else know?" "Just you and Mrs. Chen suspect something," Jake said. "Great, nosy Mrs. Chen," Ryan muttered. "Look, I want to help, but this is dangerous. What if government people find out? What if her people do not come?" "Then I will figure it out," Jake said. "I am not letting anything happen to her." Mira touched Jake's hand, her eyes soft with emotion. "You risk much for me." "You are worth it," he replied. Ryan groaned. "You are already in deep. I can see it." "Fine, I will help keep this quiet, but you two need to be more careful." After Ryan left with promises to cover for Jake at work, Mira pulled Jake into the bedroom, her hands already tugging at his clothes. "That was stressful," she murmured against his lips. "I need you." They came together urgently, the stress melting away as their bodies connected. Mira rode him on abandon, her purple skin glistening. Jake gripped her hips, watching her move above him with awe. "You are mine," she gasped as pleasure built. "Yours," Jake agreed, feeling the truth of it in his bones. Later, as they laid tangled together, the communication cord beeped. Mira jumped up to check it. "What is it?" Jake asked. "A response," Mira said, her voice tight. "My people have located my signal. A ship will arrive in 5 days." Jake felt his stomach drop. 5 days? Mira turned to him, tears in her violet eyes. "Jake, we'll figure it out," he said, pulling her close. "We still have time." But both of them knew time was running out. A choice between worlds. The next 5 days passed in a blur of stolen moments and growing dread. Jake and Mira spent every possible second together, making love, talking until dawn, pretending that her rescue ship was not coming. Ryan helped cover for them, bringing groceries and running interference with Mrs. Chen, but even he could see the inevitable approaching. "What are you going to do?" Ryan asked Jake on day 4. "I do not know," he admitted, watching Mira sleep on his couch. "I love her. How did this happen so fast?" "Sometimes it just does," Ryan said quietly. That evening, Mira's communication core alerted them that the ship would arrive the next night. They stood in the forest preserve, waiting under the stars. "Come with me," Mira said suddenly. "Jake, come to Vexora. We can be together." Jake's heart soared and broke at once. "I cannot leave my whole life, my family." "And I cannot stay," Mira said, tears streaming down her purple cheeks. "My people need me. My work is important." "I know," Jake pulled her close, breathing in her scent. "I know." They made love one last time in his apartment, slow and tender, memorizing every touch, every kiss, every whispered word of love. When the ship arrived the next night, it was magnificent. A vessel of light and metal that descended silently into the clearing. A door opened and 2 purple-skinned figures emerged. "Mira," they said, "we've been searching everywhere." Mira looked at Jake, her hand gripping his. "I don't want to go." "But you have to," Jake said, his voice breaking. "Your people need you." "What if I need you more?" she whispered. Jake kissed her deeply, pouring everything he felt into it. "Then you know where to find me. When you're done exploring the stars, if you want, come back." She nodded, unable to speak. She walked toward the ship, turning back every few steps to look at him. At the door she paused. "Jake, the bond we formed, it's permanent. I will carry you with me always." "And I will wait," Jake said, "however long it takes." She smiled through her tears, then disappeared into the ship. It lifted silently and in moments was just another star in the sky. Jake stood along in the clearing, his heart aching, but also full. What they had shared was real, impossibly real. 3 months later, Jake was working late when his window filled with familiar purple light. He ran outside to find Mira standing there, a small bag in her hand. "I told them I needed to study Earth more extensively," she said with a grin. "They gave me a year." Jake swept her into his arms, kissing her breathlessly. "A year?" "A year," she confirmed, "and maybe after that another year and another." "Stay forever," Jake said. "I'm considering it," she replied, her eyes shining. "You showed me something more valuable than all the stars combined. You showed me home." They walked back to his apartment hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, together under the same sky, 2 souls bonded across the cosmos, choosing love over everything else.